And intentionality has been a huge concept for us lately, and just leading up to this moment, this period in time, to be able to look at an outcome that we both want, to have conversations about that, and then say, okay, how do we make that happen? And so circling back to your question, just making sure we were on the same sheet of music around that time to agree on how we were going to pursue that. That was crucial, and that was key to have those conversations. And here we are.
Welcome to the McKinney Podcast, the show that celebrates what makes McKinney unique by nature. This podcast exists to spotlight the people, the organizations, and the events that shape our great city. You can count on every episode to tell a compelling story and help increase your awareness and perspective on what's happening around McKinney. Your hosts for this fun-filled adventure are Fred Mahusay, owner of FredShots Photography, and James Jenkins, CEO of RiskWell. Connect with us on YouTube and on our website, McKinneyPodcast.com. Now, let's get into it.
And welcome again to the next episode of the McKinney Podcast, where we celebrate what makes us unique by nature. I'm Fred, and James, as I've said before, we're both business owners and things come up, and sometimes we have to call audibles. I had to call an audible this morning. There was an interview that he completed with Jason Burris with the Burris Law Firm, and I was not able to be here. And then on my way here, he was like, listen, something came up. He's like, going to put me a little bit behind. I was like, not a problem. We got this because, this is a not-for-profit, nonprofit, no dollars whatsoever. Everything that you see here is strictly a labor of love. And if it weren't for James and RiskWell, the studio would not exist. So we want to give, proper props out there to know that, we're not out here being influenced or swayed or any of those things. However, when it comes to our next guests that we have on the show, they do have a lot of influence and sway, because when they show up or when they provide what they do, the people notice and the people respond. So with that, if you're looking to add that extra icing, that literal icing on your event, that client appreciation, whatever it is, then you need to get in contact with Ron and Verandah McKinney now it's BAK'D by McKinney or McKinney Makes. I'm like,
so
I need cookies to actually, fire up the brain cells here, because I'm trying to transition from what I was doing just 5 minutes ago.
And cookies are good for that. The official, LLC name is McKinney Makes, with the intention of branching out and doing other things that this McKinney can potentially make. So it's BAK'D by McKinney Makes. You know how like BAK'D by Melissa has her cupcake thing? That's what.
We don't know who that is. I don't know who that is.
I think she's a cupcake maker. I don't know if she's still out there.
But does she live in Melissa?
No. Oh my gosh. I wonder where she lives.
Yeah, see, so that's the thing that, I remember, I guess it's been 3 or 4 years now when I first met you, and, her business card says BAK'D by McKinney. And I thought, oh, that's cute, because, we celebrate, all things McKinney. And then later on, I learned that your last name is actually McKinney. Yep. And I was like, oh, wait, we're not talking about the city. We're talking about the people. Like Mr. and Mrs. Literally, we're sitting here with Mr. and Mrs. McKinney, and they bake things.
Yep.
God's been good to us. So yeah, it is BAK'D by McKinney Makes.
Yes.
Like A Tribe Called Quest, you say the whole thing.
Okay, so for those of you who aren't sure, Tribe Called Quest back in the 90s, people are going to go look that up and go, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's get those references in. That's all good.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so let's start, with the basics. When your feet first touched the earth, what soil was that? Where were you?
You want to go first? Yours is more interesting.
I was in an Air Force base. Okay, cool. I was born on a military installation.
All right.
But
where was that?
That was in Nebraska.
Nebraska. Okay. All right. So, a little bit northwestish of here, right? Okay. Yeah. All right. And for you, Verandah?
In the county of Kings, Brooklyn, New York.
Oh. Well, yeah. Oh, we have New York in the studio.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it took that long for you to say it.
I was trying to be humble.
Is there something we should know? Is there something we should know about, your New York roots there?
My husband makes fun of me all the time. Most people will say that it only takes a few seconds for someone from New York to tell you that they're from New York.
Testify.
I, however, try not to. I usually just say, "Oh, I'm from New York City," and folks will ask, "Oh, what part?" And then I'll have to say Brooklyn. Whenever someone tells me that they're from New York and I ask them what part and they say anything but Brooklyn, I have to say my condolences.
So is there something about Brooklyn? Okay, so
you're just alienating all the New York customers now. They're going to be like, oh, okay.
But see, with New Yorkers, it's all love.
Of course.
Even, folks from everyone from the boroughs will laugh. They'll be like, oh, yeah, typical Brooklyn attitude. They think they're better than everyone else. I mean, it's true.
I mean, y'all did produce the Beastie Boys out of there, right?
There you go.
Actually, that's even older than Tribe Called Quest. We're going into the 80s now. So I know there are people, moms that are riding with your children in the cars going, never mind, but remember it's like, no
Mommy,
sleep
what's a Beastie
till.
Boy?
That's right. Exactly. Okay, so you grew up military brat. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So I was born in the Midwest, but we moved around. So California, East Coast. We lived in different places, and most of my time, my formative years, I spent on the East Coast. So Maryland, PG counties, where I typically
Prince George's County. How about that? There's some. I don't know if we want to say that. You want to declare that because I was born in Baltimore. I just want to say that. So but Prince George's County.
See, you do it too. Anyone's like, I'm from Baltimore. People in there, they're like,
But it's all love. It's all love.
That's right. But if you have to get specific, Crownsville. I was representing in the Pampers at that point, so I don't have much. For stomping ground, maybe drooling and crawling ground, but but there's that. Okay, so so you moved around a lot. So did you have what you would consider a normal childhood, high school, all that other stuff, or because there was so much movement every couple of years that it was just part of your routine that we're only here temporarily?
I was that's funny. You could say I did in certain parts of it, but we did move around a bit. I still haven't had a normal adulthood, never mind a childhood, but we got to stay in one place for like the latter part of it. So elementary school, I did still moved around Maryland, Virginia type area.
Mm-hmm.
So I went through how many schools? I probably have to count. At least 5 or 6 schools for the last few years of my education.
Wow.
So,
and then did you go into the Air Force?
Not directly, no. So that took a long track. So I graduated from high school, and after high school, I went to culinary school. That's around about the time I met this one. But even that was like, we're going to stick a pin in this and come back around that later. Had a few false starts, but after culinary school, that is when I went back home to kind of regroup after some things happened in the New England area. I graduated, but there was the whole housing crisis and the that recession that everybody loves from about 2008 timeframe. So
yes, sir.
Went back home to regroup, and I wound up working in food service again. And then I got into nutrition, and I said, you know what, maybe I want to be a dietitian. And I found a path to do that through the Air Force, actually. So that's how I got into that. And that's when I got into the military. Okay. Wound up in Texas, San Antonio area. Love San Antonio. Very, very, one of the most underrated places I've ever been, ever lived. Shout out to San Antonio. But it was a great experience for me. And that's around about the time that she and I reconnected. And then after that, I got a job after I graduated. I was still in the military. So after I got out of the military, I went back to school yet again, majored in computer science this time around. Wanted to do something a little bit different and something that was more marketable outside of just a specific niche of nutrition and things of that nature, and maybe find a way to bring all that together. So that was a lot of fun. And then after I graduated, started working, and then I got recruited to a job up here in North Texas. Brought me all the way up here, so I had to leave her behind again because she had actually moved all the way to San Antonio from Brooklyn. It was nothing but the Lord that convinced her to do that, because I was like, you should think about it. She was like, no. But we had a few conversations, and it just built, and it was a beautiful thing. And she came down, and I was like, good news. Now that you're here, I got to go. But we're going to keep this going, and we made good on that.
I love that.
And here we are.
Okay.
And that's the short version.
Oh,
so I'm sure she got some gaps to.
Okay. All right, Verandah. And please forgive me, because I know that at some point I'm going to slip and say Miranda. I don't know why.
There's a simple
it does not
fix.
stick.
Most people just call me V, and that's yeah. I or cookie lady these days.
Well, I just remember you introduced yourself as Verandah, like the Starbucks drink.
Yes.
And, and I was like, oh, I love that. Because, it immediately semi-solidified, but, even when you sat down, I was like, it's Ron and Verandah. So please forgive me for that. So if I say Miranda, it's not my fault. I'm going to claim age.
We'll fix it in post. We'll fix it in post.
That's right. Okay, so P.S. What was your school?
Yeah, so unlike my military husband, I stayed on the same block. We only moved from like one part of the block to a different part of the block in the span of about 13 years. So until I was about 29 years old, I lived in the same place. I went to a total of 2 school buildings in my entire life. I went to PS 32 from like kindergarten to 5th grade, and then 6 through 12, I was in the same middle high school. So like I just... no movement until I finally moved out of my parents' house and got a taste of, that independent life. And at the time, we, again, had reconnected. This is like after college.
So you went to culinary school also?
No, I did not. I went to Wheaton in Massachusetts, not Illinois.
Okay.
They're often mistaken. But we actually met my junior year at a party. It is August, I believe, of 2007. And I'm minding my business as a junior at this party. Didn't want to go to the party. It was lame because when you're a junior, you've seen everything, right? And then here comes these random guys like through the living room of this house. And everyone's like, who are these people?
Tell the truth. You heard.
I promise you.
The crowd parted.
The
and there's
popular
this,
thing at the
golden,
time.
delicious man standing there.
I wish it was dark. I honestly wish I had seen like more of him. But again, these guys just come strolling through this living room.
Strolling.
Yes.
Like
yes.
fraternity strolling.
Yes.
Like doing the full.
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
But
was he representing the blue fly at that point?
You want to say?
You know.
But yeah, these frat boys come into the living room and it was like, whose man is this? Right? Like that was a popular thing. It's like, who are these people? Little did I know that my husband would be amongst these people, my eventual husband. I say all that to say,
was he putting in work?
I mean,
you could be, listen. We keep it PG. We do have families that listen.
They had my attention because it's like, who are you guys?
Now, were you with a sorority?
No. I was just with my friends hanging out. I was a co-captain of our step team. So that's why I was watching. It was like, okay, your stroll is cute. If I had my girls here, we probably could outstep you, but that's neither here nor there. But these guys come into the living room, and before I know it, I'm talking to this young individual who says that, he's just graduated from culinary school. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Cooking, food, we love that. But eventually, like, we all leave New England where we went to college, and we're home. And like he said, things we had like a false start because we started dating and then we stopped. Life happens. We move different parts of the country. And I am still in Brooklyn, different part. I'm living on my own. We reconnect. I start visiting him in Texas. So I'm traveling on a teacher salary, an elementary school teacher salary from Brooklyn to San Antonio, like on vacations and things like that. And Texas is great. It's way different from Brooklyn. I love it. The weather is great. Until eventually we start having the conversation, I should move. Like, I'm tired of the cost of living in New York City. The winters are brutal. I know I can make more money and keep more money in Texas because, New York City was a mess at the time. And then this idea just kept becoming more and more real the more I visited. And eventually I went on interviews and got several job offers until one day in 2016. So it's been 10 years. I'm on a plane, a one-way trip to San Antonio to, start a new life, essentially. And I think we might have like veered off the question, but my childhood was normal. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. My mom and dad, they made the 6 of us in our household. Again, I only went to 2 school buildings in my entire life. We led a kind of normal, quiet life, family of 6. You can never have peace as a family of 6. Like, you're always taking care of a child when you're the oldest of 4. Military life was very foreign to me because I think my parents, the buck had stopped with them. They had family who were like military or law enforcement, but like my parents,
None of that.
whereas my husband's
That's right.
parents, they're both completely like they doubled down. They're both Air Force. So
right. Yeah.
we just have these like, I want to say completely opposite ways of living. He's an only child. I'm the oldest of four. He has military parents. I don't. He's moved everywhere. I haven't. Like, just complete opposites in almost every way.
Mhm.
But yeah, the reconnect was interesting because, like you said, only God could have, made a story that sounds so impossible on paper actually be a real thing, because we had lost connection for years. I don't even know like how you might have reached out to me because the number had
Internet.
changed. Right. Internet. Probably. Oh, you found one of my blogs, I think, at the time.
Probably.
That's probably
That
what
sounds like
happened.
something I would do. I was just randomly on the internet and said, you know what? I wonder what she's up
Right.
to. And a few keystrokes later, I was like, hey,
Found
remember
my
me?
blog. Yeah. Yeah. And now here we are.
So did
so many
you have a
years later.
unique maiden name that he was able to look you up?
Shepherd. Yes.
Shepherd. So Verandah Shepherd.
Yeah. 1P. SHEPARD.
Okay. Oh, not that PH.
Right. Like it's so
right?
weird. Yeah. Like nothing like German Shepherd or yeah. No.
Yeah, okay. All right. So she's doing life, doing her thing. You're out there. I don't know how many more strolls you got on, how many more dates you got on with that. But at some point in life, you're like, man, that Verandah Shepherd. And you just looked her up.
Mhm.
What was going on at that point in your life that
Hmm. So
how old were you? And you're like, it's time to settle down, or I'm tired, don't want to be a player no more.
so it was a
Big pun reference.
Hey, there you go. Get those references, y'all. Get those references. But I was in my mid to late 20s, and I was transitioning out of the military around that time, out of active duty, and getting ready for a new life. So after I got out of the military, out of active duty, I decided to go back to school, and that was around that time that we started to consider things more seriously.
Mhm.
And so after all the back and forth trips, I remember the three words that kept popping into my head every time we went to take her to the airport. I was like, this is stupid. Like, and it wasn't anything against, just what the plan was, but it was just all the back and forth, she's coming here and visiting all the time. I'm not able to travel as freely due to military obligations and things of that nature. And then starting up school again. And it was just a lot of overhead to be able to be in one another's company. And looking down the road, we had some conversations about, what are we going to have? What is this leading towards? What do we want this to look like? And that was the beginning of what we started to be very intentional about. And intentionality has been a huge concept for us lately, and just leading up to this moment, this period in time, to be able to look at an outcome that we both want, to have conversations about that, and then say, okay, how do we make that happen? And so circling back to your question, just making sure we were on the same sheet of music around that time to agree on how we were going to pursue that was crucial, and that was key to have those conversations. And here we are, it's history.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. That's so good how things work out. Literally half the nation away.
Mhm.
And so all right.
Yep.
So have you always been spontaneous like that in your life?
No. So
Well, so
what brought me to Texas?
What did your folks think when you're like, I'm out?
Oh,
man.
oh my gosh. I remember
So
I was.
they loved Ron before that, and then after that they're like,
No.
absolutely not.
Not exactly.
They knew of him from like my college days, and after we had stopped dating,
Why'd you keep him a secret?
No, I probably didn't have like choices of words to talk about him to them, so they had like their own idea. But yeah, no. Originally, they weren't like your biggest fan because it came with some what do you call some ideas about
Oh, no.
what you
Oh,
might have been
no.
like, and that was only coming from me. But the only reason why I ever visited Texas, I think the first time I visited was like 2013 or something like that. I was having my year of yes. I was a teacher in residence at a charter school in Brooklyn, and I wanted to just be more bold and more brave. And I remember a teacher that I was sharing an office space with had told me, I think it was a book. I I might have recently saw it too. Still haven't read it. But the whole premise was like, just say yes to life, say yes to everything. So I decided that for a year, I was going to say yes to all the things that scared me and say yes to all of the things that, maybe a braver version of Verandah would do. And in that year, it brought me to LA for the first time. I performed poetry on stages in California for the first time. I ate different foods. I wore different things. And I traveled to a place that I said I never would travel to. And that brought me to Texas. At the time, the only, idea I had of Texas was like Sandy Cheeks' rendition of Texas from SpongeBob. So I couldn't tell you anything about Texas other than, Sandy Cheeks.
Who's from Houston, by the way.
There you go. So, wait, yeah, we confirmed she's from Houston. Yeah. So it turned out to be one of the biggest blessings of my life because, again, the eventuality of marrying my husband came from simply saying yes to things that scare me just a little bit.
So did he propose in that year?
Oh, God,
yes?
no.
Oh. It's like that.
Like pulling teeth.
That'd have been an easy one then.
Right.
Like, I got no choice. I got to say yes.
It would have been. But I think Ron was talking about intentionality. I think that over the years, we had a lot of intentional conversations and experiences that kind of brought us to that place of finally saying yes. Like, let's honor God. Second, let's do something that is going to be different, not just for our lives, but different from maybe the lives that our parents have experienced. So we didn't just rush into things. In fact, it would be another few years before I would transition and live in Texas, and another few years after that before we actually get married. So yeah, I wish it were easy, but we wanted to be sure, and I think that it was certainly worth the wait.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
You don't want buyer's remorse or any of those things, right?
No.
The conversations were crucial, and even looking back to the night that we met, one of the first things that we did was just talk. Like, even though we were in a party environment, there was music and things of that nature, and people were carrying on having a great time, which was all well and good, But at a certain point, we said, let's go for a walk and let's talk. And so we walked around the campus and we just talked to each other and got to know each other, and just to kind of gauge who we were dealing with, right? And in the beginning, you take everything with a grain of salt. You're meeting that person's representative, et cetera, but at least you're being able to decide, is this person's representative even at the tier that I want to get to know this person a little bit more?
Yes.
And thankfully it was. So we continue to have those conversations, and we talk all the time. Like, we have spoilers. We have conversation cards, like in the cars that we drive, in the rooms of the house, and whenever we're kind of sitting there, we'll pull up a conversation card and just talk about something that we haven't spoken about before.
I love that.
Just to continue pursue each other, get to know each other, and having conversations with her, again, my best friend. It's been one of the best parts of the marriage.
I love hearing that, my best friend. Man. So you don't have like theme song, Tevin Campbell, Can We Talk?
That's a good one.
He's got all the references.
I hadn't thought of that.
This is what's going to happen when James reviews this video. He's going to, oh my goodness, how many different references here. Okay, so culinary school. There was the first go, and then there was the second go, right? So when you went in, what was your concept? What were you going to do with this degree?
Oh, I love that question.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So originally, when I went to culinary school, I wanted to be a chef. This was the era that celebrity chefs were becoming more of a thing. So certain names were popping up on TV, your Emeril Lagasse's, your Jamie Oliver's, your Ming Tsai's, your Bobby Flay's, your Barefoot Contessa's, and
So
shout out to all these
are you a
people.
foodie?
Alton Brown.
You're down for food?
Oh yeah.
Am I
Okay,
ever?
all right.
Matter of fact, that's one of the first expressions of affection was I cooked for her. So when we first met, we first started to start dating, and I said, come on down and visit us. I had roommates at the time, so come on down, hang out with me. I'll make you dinner. And she said, okay. And I cooked for her because
What were you expecting?
Oh,
Simple
that's
meal.
Yeah, I guess something
Burgers,
that wasn't.
rice, spaghetti.
I don't know, but I guess I should have known because it's like, this is a culinary student. But I guess I hadn't connected dots. It's like, oh, so you just, you learn the basics like rice and spaghetti and things like that. But I didn't know the extent to which he had been taught. So that's why I was just like, oh no, you're for real, for real.
Did you kick the roomies out for the night? Say, y'all got to go just for a little bit?
I don't think I had to. I think they were like,
kind of cleared out.
Yeah, we're going to go somewhere. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. So yeah, I wound up cooking things that were still in my budget as a newly graduated, graduated person. Again, recession. There's a lot of things happening, but I found room in the budget, and I said, I believe it was filet mignon.
Yeah.
And roasted potatoes.
Yeah.
So threw that together, and she's like, "Oh, this is good."
Yeah.
She clearly it didn't suck too bad because she's still hanging around.
I would have told you. Yeah.
Man, so you go all out. We're not gonna go to that restaurant to get that steak. You're gonna come here,
right,
and have that steak. All right. So now, as a quick jump forward, jump back, is it difficult for you to go out and eat at places and something isn't quite right, and you're like, oh you should have flipped it at 2 minutes instead of 2 minutes and 30 seconds, or salt shaker with the right hand versus the left because of how it hits the steak? Do you?
At one point it was, but now I've been able to differentiate. Am I just coming to enjoy the meal, or am I coming to as a professional to critique? And lately I just enjoy the meal.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed something similar with people who are film buffs. It's one thing for them to go and see a movie that they've never seen before and just enjoy it, have a good time, versus to see it from a film buff's perspective.
Yes.
Cinematography and casting and lighting and all these other things that maybe your average person who's just there to consume and enjoy the film may not notice.
Yes.
So I have a similar approach to food.
Man.
So I'm at the restaurant. I'm just here to have a good time.
You're reading my mail.
Unless somebody's like, what do you think of this professionally? Then I'll say, okay, well, you did great here. This is great, with your eyes first. It's great presentation. And then I'll break it down and give a more structured critique.
Mm-hmm. That's funny because, I enjoy, cameras and lighting, all those things. I also enjoy, just recreational shooting, and so, but, my brother, Marines, and, that was one thing that, my brother, my dad and I did. We would go to the gun range a lot. And so, we'd just have a great time, just plinking things. But I can't watch, any cop shows because ultimately there's going to be some forensic scene and someone comes up with a camera and they're taking pictures. And I'm like, that will never work out. That will never work out. Or they've got the smallest little lens and they're doing like recon work. There's someone, way across the parking lot and they're ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. There's all these great shots. It's like that's
not how that goes.
I just sit there and it's like, oh. And then, I finally started to watch that series with Kiefer Sutherland, the 24.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I didn't get into that until I think maybe 5-6 years ago.
Nice.
I started to watch it. I'm like, okay, this is kind of good. But you could tell when they brought on just, the people, I was like, it was kind of like in Star Trek, the dude that wore the red shirt, he's going to die.
No.
They would bring in agents and I'm like, oh, he's going to die because, how they're holding, their weapon or whatever. And I'm like, oh, like, and then I'm just like, oh, this is not going to work. And so I would just sit there, watch shows and just be groaning. And eventually, what you said, that was like, I didn't make this movie. They didn't consult me, obviously, because I'm broke. But I was like, oh, I'm just killing myself here. What? And then someone finally, I tried to watch, The Walking Dead or something. And I was like, oh, really? You don't, like, everybody who's in these horror movies, they've never seen a horror movie. Because I was like, oh, I know. I'm going to go separate myself from everybody. No, you go do your thing. I'm going to go over here in a dark, creepy place.
Yep.
Everything's going to be fine.
And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so it was actually one of my friends / client. He says, Fred, you're thinking too much. To just enjoy it. So I'm glad that you're able to turn that off and just enjoy it. But that's interesting though. So okay. So let's fast forward now. Yeah. All right. Fast forward. Mm-hmm. You're married. You're out of the Air Force. You're still teaching?
I can say, yeah. But I was on my way to transitioning out. So I transitioned out of the classroom in 2021.
What were you going to do then?
I transitioned into education technology. So I didn't go too far. So I still work in service of, school leaders, children, and 21, school districts.
Post-corona.
Yeah. So I did a little bit of teaching virtually during COVID until about May of 2020. And then we got married.
All right. So talk to all the teachers here, who listen in, because as a parent of a student who graduated in 2020, went on spring break and never came back to school.
Yep.
But his online classes, trying to insist that he be a good citizen online and pay attention, no distractions, all those other things. What's it like for you as a teacher on the other side of that box, looking at 20 plus little squares? And because classroom management, my wife and I, we were both, that's not my wife and I, she's not here, but we both have, prior classroom experience also.
Yeah.
And so, the standard of proximity to get students back on task, you can't do that online. So what sort of challenge was that for you as a teacher?
Teachers, thank you for your service.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
He knows that wherever we
knows.
go, you say to servicemen and women and teachers, thank you for your service.
That's right.
One of the most heartbreaking things I can clearly remember is having to be in front of about a group of 30, 40, kindergarten students, and then them just having this look of like deer in headlights or just being completely glazed over, right? So you have these like 4 or 5-year-olds who, they might like tinker with technology, with toys like at home, but now you're expecting them to operate as if they're college students sitting in front of a screen for 8 hours a day, learning really critical skills that just did not happen. And it's heartbreaking because they're crying, they're hungry, they need their naps, they want to play, they want to interact with other people. They're in environments sometimes that aren't conducive to learning.
No, you talk about me during regular Zoom meetings. I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm crying, I need my nap.
Exactly. So like for us, like in our 40s, our 50s, if we are feeling that way on like our Zoom meetings, now think of these 4 or 5-year-olds who, I think that cohort of students are probably 6th graders, 5th graders? Heartbreaking. But I knew then that was yet another challenge that I did not have the bandwidth to try to fight through on my own. I've seen some pretty intense things having worked in classrooms in Brooklyn, in San Antonio, in California. And at that particular point in time, I said, if I continue along this path, I will be no earthly good for anyone. I know that I'm doing the Lord's work and being a teacher and making sure that tomorrow's minds are sharp and bright. But if I continue along this way, there won't be anything for me to give anyone else. So yeah, and
you can feel the burnout coming.
Very much so, and in a way that had been unprecedented than like normal pre-COVID burnout, right? Just some really heartbreaking circumstances. We got to see more and more how some of education's most vulnerable populations just they thrived even less when at home, right? And we know this also about like adult relationships. There were certain things that just started to come to light about I want to say a few months in, once people started to spend a lot more time together, like marriages maybe started to fall apart and cracks started to happen. And for a lot of children who come to school who rely on, secure attachments, for warm people, for food, for stimulation, like suddenly them not having that, I got to witness some of the most heartbreaking things that I've ever experienced in my career. And it was too much. It was too much.
Well, as I'm just gonna bandwagon here with Ron. Thank you so much for sticking through that part, because I mean that was just straight insanity for me, because I remember watching our son, just sit there, and of all things, it was we have 2 sons, and the one he's fairly introverted, more like dad, but the other one, he's definitely our social child, and he needed that personal interaction. I mean, I would walk out the front door, just sit on the front steps and just stare, and he'd come out and just sit and stare with me, and I was like, do you miss school? He's like, no, not really. And then he sat there and was like, but I miss my friends. And I was like, I met little kids, it's like, and by the way, why is it that like kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, they include a nap in the middle of your day? By the time you get to 3rd grade, they snatch that rug out from underneath you, no more naps. And I'm like, this is messed up. This is messed up, because I believe that most of the world's problems would go away, at least in the United States, if we would just incorporate naps again.
So I say the same thing, but I say if only people just had a cookie and a nap. That's it. Like everything would be solved if more people had cookies and naps. Like, we would be okay. But
if you want to run for office, I will vote for you.
Yes, that's my entire platform. Cookies and naps for everyone.
Okay. All right. So we have our classroom educator who moves into educational technologies.
Mm-hmm.
We have our foodie, food critic, gourmet chef here. Bring us up to speed. Well, actually, first. You're in San Antonio, and you have not formed BAK'D by McKinney at this point, right?
No.
All right. So where is the move to McKinney?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome home. Where did that come into play?
Yeah. So Ron mentioned earlier that he had gotten a really sweet job up here in North Texas, and that actually brought us to Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still in San Antonio. We had just gotten married. Found a job up here actually, it wasn't even in Dallas. It was for a charter school that was set to be opening in Fort Worth. So we just got married, and then a few months later, I have to go to California. So we spent some time apart again, which is a story of our lives. I think it was October-ish of 2020. I'm in my hotel room one night, and we're just talking about like business and entrepreneurship. And he's like, what would it look like for you to start your own business? And I was just like, I can't even comfortably spell entrepreneur like most days. So why would I know nothing about business. Clearly my background is education. Like, I'm probably going to be doing this until I retire. No, I don't want to start a business. Fast forward, we eventually move up to McKinney. We find a neighborhood is being built. So like these houses come on the market, and we're like, yeah, we've been saving for a house. We didn't know that we would eventually move to McKinney, but like, how could we not? So when the opportunity came, we grabbed it. It's like, how could you be named McKinney and not move to McKinney? Everything worked out. The dominoes fell in the most lovely way.
Thank goodness you weren't named Garland.
I know.
No disrespect to Garland, but
or you could have had one of them harder names like, Poteet. Or,
oh, goodness. Yeah.
Pottsboro.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, good strawberries in Poteet, though.
Yeah.
Shout outs to Poteet.
Yeah, definitely.
You forgot to say about the bet.
Oh, well, that's coming. That's coming.
Come on.
So we eventually, we all move up to McKinney, and I say we all like there was 10 of us. It was just
what was it about McKinney that?
In addition to, of course, our name being on everything, I think we would drive around the city and like see these signs for McKinney and be like, "Oh, it's a place."
Mm-hmm.
And I think one day
McKinney
we
doesn't have like a rep down in Richardson.
So,
I didn't know of one.
So there was a few things that go into it. So when we were in Richardson, let's kind of set the clock a little bit. So we had moved up here I came up here in 2019.
2019, yep.
2019, and I was living in Richardson and working. She came up here to visit. It was spring break, and there was this weird stuff that was happening in the news. People were talking about getting colds and not feeling so great. That was COVID. And so she came up here in 2019, and she stayed here.
Never went back.
That was when we started. Again, we were on the cusp of deciding that we were going to make this permanent anyway. But, 2020, we had a lot more time together and spent more time having more conversations.
Absolutely.
And that was the environment under which it's like, all right, let's go ahead and do it. So we got married during COVID, before there was a vaccine, before there was anything, before it was just, you're going to get what you get and don't get upset.
This could be the last thing we do type energy.
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah.
And we doubled down on that. We said, if that's what it is, then so be it. But, we said, God, if you don't want us to do this, if you want something different, let us know. And we didn't hear anything different. So here we are. And so that was 2020 up to 21. You went away, came back. And yeah, so around 2023 is when we moved to McKinney.
Okay.
And that was when we had a few experiences with our rental situation. We were saying, okay, we want something different. And our realtor said, there's these places up north. I said, okay. We went to a couple different places, New Hope and whatnot. And then he showed us the neighborhood in McKinney. And he said, you know what? This looks good. We continued to pray on it. We checked the financials. We said, okay, this is financially feasible. And that's when it started to fall into place and started to happen. So 2023 is when we made McKinney our home.
And then you're like, let's start a business?
Oh no, the business happened before then. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of back and forth. Let's go back to 2021.
Okay.
I'm finally back home. I made the transition to education technology, and the conversation about business comes back. Because at the time, I'm live streaming on Twitch. I'm doing cooking content. So the non-culinary student is doing cooking content on Twitch. It was a lot of fun. It was very therapeutic. I would, cook a lot of food from East Asia. My college major was Asian Studies. And that's because I took just like a huge liking to that area of the world after visiting China as a 17-year-old. But yeah, I'm cooking on Twitch and it's fun. And, he's like, you should make a business out of it. And I'm like, how? Like, I don't know anything about business. So McKinney Makes became a thing, right? Get the Instagram, do whatever. Until one day I'm just like, okay, let's say I make a business. What's the business going to be? So I started thinking, I was like, well, I know cookies because I'm a Girl Scout, right? And like me and my mom.
Come on now, you Girl Scout. You used to hustling
cookies are our
though.
thing. Exactly.
Slinging them.
Yeah, that's right. You're not cooking them. You're just like,
please. Exactly. So I know the business of cookies and getting cookies to sell. I started thinking, well, my mom sold cookies to pay for the trip to China. So I'm like, all right, I'll just create a cookie company, whatever. So soon after that, BAK'D became a thing, but there was a bet. So I said, okay, I'm going to create this business. I'm going to do this cookie business thing. But I bet you within like 6 months, it's going to fail.
And I said,
you bet against yourself?
I bet against myself.
I'll take that bet.
With my husband. And here we are.
That's
now.
Backwards.
Because again, like I'm an elementary school teacher. I've not had, I don't know the first thing about like corporate business or like small business, entrepreneurship. Like I'm just a girl. No, my thought at the time was no one's going to buy cookies from some random girl's kitchen when they have the likes of like Insomnia and Tiff's Treats and Crumble, right? Like I did not believe firmly the way that I believe today. So I made a bet. I was like, you know what? I bet you this is going to fail. Not that it's going to succeed, but it's going to fail. He took the bet. I like to say this is the longest running, most expensive bet I continue to lose every day.
Yep.
It's like some sort of weird David and Goliath thing where it's like Bizarro World where it's like you bet against yourself.
Yeah.
So how do you start a business when you're already saying this is going to tank?
So I did everything that I guess I knew to do, right? And in the age of technology, you can get an Instagram, you can, post pictures of things, you can tell people to buy, and you can put yourself out there. I was flying by the seat of my pants. He had created his business. So my signing up with the Secretary of State, I did solely on, his teaching. Like he told me what to do, where to go. So I did it. And I was like, okay, I got this thing from the IRS. I'm registered with the state and I got the Instagram and I have some pictures, right? I got a bank account. And I was just like, okay, I'm doing what the internet is telling me to do.
But now you need product.
Right. So I started baking. And the very first thing that I did was I baked a batch of cookies and I sent them out to friends and family across the country. And that was because I wanted some honest feedback, but I also wanted to test shipping. So we had my parents who were still in New York City, had some folks who were northeast to south, kind of like Florida, had some friends over in California. So I figured if I could get the most extremes of the country, we can see, how fast shipping is. So it's funny, I'd been doing all of the things that business people go to school to learn how to do. I just didn't know I was doing it. I just did what I thought made sense to me. Not made sense to Verandah, the business person.
That's business intuition. You just didn't know you had.
Which I didn't know I
the
had.
Force.
Right. I was just, again, in my mind, I was just like, I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I'm just going to do what I think feels right for where I think I want to go. And yeah, before I know it, we are 5 months in and I have ads running on Yelp. And I get this email from someone who's doing a grassroots kind of advertising in like Frisco and Little Elm. And long story short, that turned out to be my very first partnership with a very major brand that I had no idea was the major brand. And it resulted in, I forget, I have a screenshot on my phone, but it resulted in like a $4,000 payday.
Wow.
So 5 months in, a single order gets me like $4,000 for cookies that I made in my apartment kitchen.
Did you ever rock $4,000 as a Girl Scout?
Oh yeah. I was
yeah.
doing numbers in Brooklyn as a Girl Scout.
I was doing numbers.
Oh yeah. I got a lot of awards in my troop for being a top seller.
She's so humble.
I'm very proud of that. Girl Scouting is.
You got to give credit where it's due, though.
So you recognize that hustle from the get go, huh?
Game recognized game.
There you go. Game recognized game. All right, I love it. Okay, so she's going in. This is going to fail, but I'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
What are you doing at this time? Are you just standing on the side going, "Come on, I need."
That's part of what I'm doing. Of course, still doing my 9 to 5 and things of that nature. But my thing was, I need to be able to support her.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to be a thought partner and help bounce ideas and do research and fill in those gaps for the things where she's not quite sure about. It's like, all right, I'll do some research on that. We'll come together. We'll kind of have a conversation and we'll figure it out. Because I'm in this bet too. I'm like, if I can't bet on my partner, then what did I get a partner for? Like, did I get the right partner? If you can't bet on your partner, ask yourself, did you get the right partner?
But she's already said that this is going to fail.
Yeah.
And so you have to have double the motivation for you and for her.
So it's funny you mentioned that, because in my mind and my thinking at the time, because there was so much potential there, like I saw what she's been able to do, even in periods where she wasn't quite sure what she was doing, like the cooking thing and doing the streaming thing. Like, she didn't know how to start a stream on Twitch. Twitch wasn't some place that she was even familiar with. That was something we both got into, and I would watch people play video games,
gaming.
Like that.
That's right.
All right, that was the main thing there. But we would go on there and we would watch people do things, and I said, you know what, I bet you could do that. And she was like, maybe. And we would watch videos on YouTube, people doing street food and things of that nature. So we were just kind of in that era where it was just a lot of fun to do. And I said, you know what, between the two of us, there's no way that we can't make a dent in this. Like, it's going to do something. We just don't know what. So all we need to do is have faith, be smart, of course, be intentional to the extent that we're able to do our research and be smart. But you can't win if you don't play. You got to put your name in the hat. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott.
He's read all the books and all the quotes and all the memes. That's right. And of course, one of my favorite ones is, they talk about Michael Jordan, how many points, he's made, and he's quick to say how many shots he's missed. And so, if you don't try, you can't triumph. And
Definitely.
So, I love that. Okay. So what do you have to say to, and a couple things, you mentioned several times, your faith and your conversations. What do you say to the couples out there that are in a business together? Because that causes tension. What do you say to them? What are some key nuggets of success?
Have conversations often, even if they're not necessarily about substantial things, but just keep those emotional and conversational muscles flowing, and resist the urge to shut down when things aren't going exactly the way that you want. That's huge. And make sure that your vertical alignment is right, because if you're not aligned spiritually with whatever you believe in, then everything else, all your alignments horizontally are going to suffer. And it just so happens that we had those conversations as well. We were struggling with something. We would talk about it, say, I'm not quite sure about this. We pray for each other, pray with each other all the time. And that was huge for us. What about you?
I love that.
I think we're in a unique situation where I am the highest ranking executive leader in the business. And we talk about this on our podcast too. There's this interesting dynamic where he is head of household, but I am head of business. So essentially, he works for me. So it gets
voluntarily. Please continue.
Oh, really? Anywho, it gets interesting. Like he said, you've got to stay in prayer. You've got to stay aligned. There needs to be clear communication. Something I'm learning as a business leader is that what I don't communicate doesn't get done. And what I don't over communicate doesn't get refined. So in order for us to kind of live in this space where we each wear the leadership hat and we get to take it on or off depending on, the context. That requires a lot of intentionality, a lot of conversation, a lot of prayer, a lot of, trusting your gut. I would say that it is fun to work in business with your partner. It is not a bad thing to have separate businesses, because we also have separate businesses that we're pursuing at the moment. But definitely be on the same team. Don't feel like you are on two opposing teams, because that's when things are going to get really complicated really quickly.
So,
And
go ahead.
if I may, one thing that our church challenged us with very early on in the marriage was to be a servant and to work very hard to try to outserve one another. And as soon as we got married, that was kind of our running gag and our competition. It's like, I'm gonna make dinner. It's like, okay, I'm gonna clean up. And it's like, we're always trying to outserve each other. And to this day, we still try to do that. It's like, all right, I'm gonna open the door for you, and I'm gonna drive here, and I'm gonna take care of this. And we're looking even sneaky ways to outserve each other and surprise each other, and make that the competition. If you're gonna compete on anything, again, make it be the competition on, who looks to serve the most. That's even in the Bible, right? The greatest among you will be the least.
That's right.
So it's a race to the bottom, and doing that in the marriage definitely has bled into the business side of things. So in the business side of things with Bake the Cookie business, of course I'm here to support her. This is her thing that she's doing, and if I do anything that would consciously make her fail, or if I fail to do anything, that's a failure on my part. Like, I'm still part of this business, and it's part of my job to make sure that the business does well and to make sure that she does well. So in the business world, even if I were talking about just my regular 9-to-5, like where you have somebody that you work for, because we all work for somebody, but part of your job is to make the people who you're working with and working around, make them look good too. And if you can do that and put that ego to the side to make sure that things go off without a hitch, eventually it'll come back for you. It'll come back to you, and somebody's going to take care of you. And being married, that's also part of it, right? Again, just keep serving each other, and that person's going to serve you too, and just keep that going. It's a virtuous cycle, and that's been fantastic for us.
No, I love that. That's so good. It's so refreshing to hear. And I'm certain that conflicts arise, but because you have worked to keep communication open, that you're not afraid to bring that up. And I love that key point there is, like, when things get tough, don't shut down. Like when Elizabeth and I, my wife and I, when we're having conversations, there's some things where I'm like, I'll park my phone elsewhere. It's like, I want nothing to disrupt, what's going on here. And so, it's like, and I want to say you have my full attention, because, it's so easy now. Like, even this whole time I've had this up here, because I'm like, monitoring things, and I'm like, it's so easy to get so drawn away by the little box. And I believe that, through COVID, because everything was online, that even those of us who didn't really have a lot of technology growing up, we instantly got ingrained to what's going on in the palm of my hand right here, and so those things can easily take you off track. Okay, we have filled up a whole ton of time here getting to learn about you, but tell us about BAK'D.
Yeah. So BAK'D is I'm sorry, let me go back, because we recently had a moment of clarity. BAK'D is America's #1 cookie philanthropy brand. And I say that having the most faith that this impossible dream will be fulfilled by
so you believe
a God
it now.
Who can, for sure. We've come full circle. There are things that have happened in the business that I know I did not do in my own strength. That I know that, like, even as good as I am, or as business savvy I might have developed to be, or the intuition, nothing but God. Nothing but the Lord, right? So I believe that this impossible thing that I'm working toward will be fulfilled by a God who can do the impossible. So we are America's #1 philanthropy cookie brand. We are social impact leaning, which means that we seek to do good in communities that have been historically underserved, overlooked. I had another thought and kind of just went elsewhere as I'm thinking again the gravity of such a thing. We specifically champion travel experiences and personal development experiences for girls and young women. Why? because again, when I was 17, my mom baked and sold cookies out of our family's apartment. So
you could go to China.
Right. So I could travel abroad for the first time. So she's already done what I bet against myself for, which now that I say it out loud, it's like it never struck me. It's like you bet against yourself for something that you've seen your mother do. You are your mother's child, your 2.0 version of her, but yet you originally didn't believe. That's wild.
Is she still alive?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you should
so
let her
my
know.
parents, they're in Salina. I should call her after this. Actually, they are in. Yeah.
You know what?
They're in Salina. I had them come to Lynx last April, and they got their standing ovation. I always said that I want my parents to be able to have a standing ovation because they have no idea what their little entrepreneurship bout did for my life and now for the life of not just North Texas, but eventually the world. So yeah, we bake and sell cookies. We give to organizations that support girls and young women right now because I don't have my own, but fingers crossed, there'll be something in the future. But we also give to organizations that are community serving. So food insecurity is near and dear to my heart. Growing up in a 6-person household, both of my parents worked, but sometimes there was too much month left at the end of the check.
That's right.
So I know what it's like to go to food pantries. I know what it's like to, get subsidized assistance from programs and organizations who help families in need. So we give back to places like North Texas Food Bank. We're going to be supporting Melodies, or did we already do that? The McKinney Food Pantry. I think they were doing a thing with TJ and Rough Riders. But making sure that people have access to quality food no matter their zip code, because hunger is in every zip code, period. So that's the point of BAK'D, right? I knew early on when I was creating business structure, I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this business, I also want to honor God with my business. So we tithe in the business. The way that we determine how much gets donated to organizations, it's 10% of everything that we build in. So the point is just, I want to do something that's going to leave a legacy that's God honoring. It just happens to be with cookies. My mother could have sold like Rice Krispie treats, and I'm sure it would have been a Rice Krispie treat business, but she sold cookies. So I want to continue, on with that accidental legacy that she's built. So we just want to be a force for good during a time where it can sometimes feel like there aren't very many of those forces left.
I love that. Okay, so like your cookies, like everybody has a concept of a cookie and what that is. And we've name dropped Girl Scout cookies and some other places that that sell some custom cookies also. But tell us about what you actually offer in those cookies.
So BAK'D actually stands for something. Best ingredients.
That's B.
They can be affordable.
Okay. A.
Yes. They were crafted with kindness.
K.
Yeah. And then they are just darn delicious.
That's right. So it's BAK apostrophe D.
Apostrophe D, yeah.
That's right.
Not backed.
Right.
That's right.
Baked.
Baked. That's right.
Yes. So all of my cookies come with ingredients that you can find at Kroger H-E-B, meaning that there are no like shelf stabilizers or anything that would artificially extend the life of cookies. Oreos and Chips Ahoy are great, but baked cookies are not those. This is not that.
When you get them, you have to eat them.
Right, within like a week, or throw them in the freezer, which is what I often do and often suggest. And again, they were created to be something that is easily accessible for communities, whether they're having a birthday party or retirement, it's a random Tuesday and you just want a snack, so be it. But with our custom cookie product, we also want to solve a problem for businesses, right? How many trade shows have you been to? And maybe, Fred, you've done it yourself. I don't know. But how many trade shows have you been to, or events where people are giving out pens and notebooks and mugs and things that go at the bottom of it?
And a cupboard full.
There you go. So what we do for businesses, we make their presents edible. Because who's going to say no to a cookie?
That's right.
Like,
and especially a delicious cookie.
Exactly.
I have had some promo cookies with a logo on it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Go to eat it. I'm like,
not so cool.
I can't tell you how many times I hear that.
But I do have to say, because I know I've got to land this episode that just recently Elizabeth, contracted you to produce some cookies, as a client thank you for an event that we had. and those things got gobbled up. My basic rule is when we buy a promo item, or client appreciation, it goes to the clients. But, it was there with the food spread, and I was like, well, there's nothing else sweet here. So I figured I'd have one. And, I'm already familiar with the cookie, so I took a small bite, and then that was it. The hand just rammed the rest of it in. I was like, okay. And then I'm looking around going, did anyone notice that? And can I go for a second one before, the boss lady sees? But yeah, so, we have literally, I'm watching this thing count to a full hour that we've been here talking, and you have shared so much. But I feel like there is so much more.
Oh, yeah.
There is so much more. And so I want to encourage you in our audience to, go to the show notes and find BAK'D by McKinney and get to know them, and, they've already said it so many times, if it's in the Lord's will, and through prayer, through the struggles, through the trials, and really just stepping out in faith, that they are here, blessed with the family name. They moved to the area, didn't know about the area, realized that McKinney is the place to be. And, we realize that here in McKinney, we might be, our small little 200-something thousand community member community, but we have an impact that is not only within our region, within our state, across our nation, and across the world. And Ron and Verandah are just two examples of what makes us unique by nature. So this has been another episode of the McKinney Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thanks again for listening to and watching the McKinney Podcast. We drop a brand new episode every Monday morning. We'd love to connect with you and hear your thoughts, suggestions, and guest recommendations. You can message us on Facebook or send an email to us at mail@McKinneyPodcast.com. This entire production is a passion project for James and Fred and our lovely wives, Elizabeth and Allison. We're so grateful to have you along for the journey. We look forward to seeing you again next week and hopefully in person around town. That's all for now, ladies and gentlemen. Make it a great day.